A well-designed and set up AI stack, you don't have to be as good as writing a prompt because it should already be in the instruction set. It should already anticipate and know what you're doing.
And that's really where the unlock is. There's a difference between just doing it once for a chat and then there's building infrastructure. And when build infrastructure, you don't have to go in and prompt it every time for that thing because it already knows what to expect in that context and that structure. Hello and welcome, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Stephen, for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. We had some great conversation the other day, and I'm excited to follow up and do an actual recording so we can share a little bit for any viewers that are watching. You've done some incredible work through Focal Point. You've had your coaching business for how many years now?
Going on 4.
4 years. And previous to that, you came from an electrical engineering background. I think you even served in the Air Force. So would you tell us like a little bit about how that transition happened and what compelled you to move into the coaching space?
Sure, yeah. I received a scholarship out of high school for Air Force ROTC. So they paid for my degree and they needed electrical engineers. So that's the degree that I was chosen for, if you will. So I went through the ROTC program, served in the Air Force, got out and was an engineer. And I found my spot in the telecommunications kind of high-tech industry for about 30 years.
Nice. Yeah, the high-tech aspect, that was something that attracted me when I first had discovered you. And the way that you do your coaching from many other people that I've seen is like you really focus on that tech first, tech enablement. You sort of focus, and a lot of the things that you've done is actually build great tools that help people, of course, using AI, using some of the best tools available to us right now. I found it very exciting to see what you've done. And so there are, from what I remember, 3 different sort of core products that you have that target different types of people, or as I would refer to them as ICPs, or ideal client profiles. And so one of the first ones that you've built is AI Your Business. And if I'm not mistaken, that focuses on the small, is that the small business owner?
Small business owner, yeah, small, medium enterprises.
Yep. And in addition to that, you have a product that focuses on the service and the trades business. And then lastly, you have another product that focuses on CXOs, right? And developing them and coaching them. So yeah, so if you're any one of those, tune in and chime in here, and you're going to get some great value because Todd has built some incredible products that really give great value to help understand the AI layout. Everyone right now is trying to figure out ways that they can, we all know that we need AI. We all know that it's valuable. We hear about it mostly. Depending on, I guess, what your news channels are, it could be that like it's going to take over the world and, it's going to do all these things. But really, there are ways that it can benefit us greatly. We just have to learn how to adopt them and how to get comfortable using them and build good patterns. So yeah, with that, we'll kind of dive in. And I guess the first place I'd like to start is, let's see, if we could talk about like the 3 different, maybe give us like the general overview of those 3 things that we just talked about.
Yeah, I think as far as those 3 things, or those ICPs as you called it, the reason why I work so much with the trades and with small businesses and with executives is in my background and my career, I've done extensive work in all those areas. And as a business coach having your own practice, you can pick who you want to work with. And there's a lot of business coaches out there, and the ones that you pick are the ones that have rolled up their sleeves or, have the scars in those industries that can speak to it. So in my family, they're all entrepreneurs, and we have mostly in the trades. I'm a 4th generation entrepreneur now, and my grandfather started an electrical wholesale business. I have uncles that are plumbers, electricians, HVAC mechanics, all the trades. And that's how I grew up. I grew up as assistants. I grew up installing air conditioners, hot water heaters, running wire, all that stuff. So I just grew up in the small business and the small family business. So that's why I want to work with those businesses. In my corporate career is high tech, so we were always on the forefront of technology. One of my early projects was a big device that we clamped onto a Trio device, a Trio phone back in the day, that actually turned your device or your phone into a GPS tracker. Imagine, right? So one of our first early projects was groundbreaking as far as having GPS on a phone. So I've always loved the intersection of technology and usefulness. And in my corporate career, I worked directly for CEOs, with CEOs in that C-suite, knowing exactly what they go through. And a lot of the tools that I've developed that we'll talk about, can directly address some of the pain points that they serve. And then just small businesses in general. I think that's a big area where the next generations are going. It's always the blood of America as far as where business is concerned. That's what makes a lot of things go. And, I want to focus and work with them. And so I've always had, technology at the forefront. And right now with AI, it's very interesting, because, the new generations coming out of school now, Generation Alpha, they use AI daily, just like Gen Z and the millennials kind of grew up on screens. They're going to be growing up with AI. So they're going to have it. Gen Z, interestingly enough, I don't want to say is anti-AI, but out of all of the generations, Alpha, Z, Millennials, X, Boomers, whatever, Gen Z is the most opposed to AI of all people, and rightly so, because it is disrupting the job market. And if they had it bad enough with the cost of living and gas and rent and everything else, now we have technology taking away a lot of jobs in the job place. Yeah. So it's had a big impact. So those are the three verticals that I like to work with, and we're now incorporating technology. I mean, AI has been around for a long time, but not in the form and the availability that it's been in the last 6 months or a year.
Right.
And so now we're incorporating that into a lot of our daily practices.
Yeah, that's always a fun thing to talk about, is how AI has been around for quite longer than most people realize. It's just in different ways. A lot of more mathematically tuned or algorithmically tuned AI. Machine learning was really big, but there's just been a huge explosion with these large language models and the more generic LLMs to be able to interpret language, be creative kind of in how it analyzes large swaths of data. It's good and bad, like in terms of like what people think it can do versus like what it should do. And there's even there's an important aspect of learning how that's even handled. And so, yeah, it's been around for a while, and there's just all these opportunities. It really depends on how we frame it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are people that are going to be perhaps displaced, as any industry and with any technology. It's happened since horses came about,
Right.
and then the first tractors. But, in this case, it's really important for people to use this as an opportunity to take advantage of the shift in the market. This is where people are open to having conversations, because it's such a compelling tool that people are willing and know that they should be doing something that revolutionizes their process, or how they're gathering information, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I took a poll. I was at a group session this morning of about 50 business owners. And, I always ask, who all here is using AI, who's using Claude, who's using Grok, who's using GPT. And of course, everybody, most everybody, 99% raises their hands, which we see in business. Everybody's dabbling in AI in some level. And then I asked them, all right, so who here has written their own custom GPT? And maybe 4 people may have raised their hands. Who here is using Claude Cowork? 2 or 3. Who's using Claude Projects? Who knows what an MD file is? And nobody raised their hand. So out of the 50 or so users of AI, none of them really are using it, and none of them are technical businesses. Really, I think one was. None of them have really set it up correctly. None of them are using it correctly, and none are using it to the full power, even though there's thousands of hours of videos on YouTube that are published daily almost on how to use Claude and how to use AI effectively. And a lot of the businesses that I've seen attempted to use AI and have given up. because now after 3 months of trying to use AI, they're not getting the results that they keep reading about and hearing about. In fact, it's made things worse for their business.
Yes.
And so it's a very interesting phenomenon. I think probably the course of the rest of 2026, people will be understanding how important a single source of truth is, which in engineering, that's always what we always planned for in automation, is you have to have a single source of truth. Nobody knew what that term was outside of engineering until this year, and few people still don't hear that. So that's very important. And then governance.
And then Todd, so let's do this and break that down in the most basic framework. Like, what would you say is that single source of truth, like in real user terms?
Yeah. So, it's garbage in, garbage out on that philosophy. With, dirty data, you get dirty automations or you get dirty work. A lot of businesses don't have a single place that is like a master of all data. So, when you look at the tech stacks, and I'll actually be talking to the chamber in a meeting or kind of a conference tonight about the tech stack of small businesses. And what I'll be teaching and talking about is, typically we see a sales stack, a marketing stack, a finance, and an operations. We usually have tool stacks kind of within those categories. Sometimes some tools spread across those verticals. So with regards to, marketing, you'll probably have leads that come in, prospects, people pre-conversion. You need a single source of truth of leads. As far as customers go, you need to understand who your customers are that you're working with, kind of when we're talking about CRMs or some of those platforms. And then your business with financials and data points and metrics, marketing metrics, performance metrics, whatever else. There needs to be one source of truth that means this is the number, or these are the numbers. And a lot of businesses have either copies of numbers or similar numbers that are in multiple places and not concentrated in one place. And that's a big mess, especially when you start incorporating automations and AI, because you can start automating the wrong numbers and get wrong results.
That's right. Yeah, that's great that you broke it down like that. I think it's really useful when people understand what that single source of truth really means. It couldn't be any more relevant as well with AI, like you were alluding to, right? Mm-hmm. Is AI can be very powerful, but if an AI hasn't been trained and given the proper context and given the proper information with which to then make some of those decisions, it's only good at guessing what it has for context, and then beyond that, it's like, okay, it's just a, I don't know, like a fancy book writer, I don't know, like content writer, right? Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the day, it's just there to be creative. And that's what a lot of people are having fun with it as a tool to just like answer some questions. But what I appreciate is there's also some funny accounts out there that are making fun of how ChatGPT will respond to like the most basic questions, and it can be manipulated. So it's, in a very simple way, it's proving to people like, hey, like, don't just take what it's saying for face value. Like, yes, it's powerful. Yes, it can like be very creative, but especially in a business context, if you're analyzing information to submit to a client or even submit to some other like authority board, maybe the franchise tax board, if it's real numbers, doing, income or tax statements or something like that. There are real implications with this. We've heard of the stories of lawyers getting disbarred because they Todd and asked it for some reference cases, and it just completely made it up.
Invented them. Yeah.
It's really important to know that there's like this difference of using generic LLMs that pull from a large swath of data out on the open internet. But then there's like really power, or there's a huge capability for a business, for any organization, for a small business, if they can understand and pull in all that data. And there is a lot of times a lot of effort involved, depending. It actually, what it exposes is the truth about that business too, right? Like if all of a sudden, a third party comes in and they're asking for structure and there's no structure, it's like, oh, well, maybe that could be an area for improvement, but that's usually a good first place to start. So, but thanks for, I think it's a good talking point there.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people, I try to explain, especially if they're Gen X or 80s kids like me, that AI is like the old video games that you had to, feed quarters into, that you play the game to a certain level and you run out of your last life or whatever else, and it says you're so close, would you like to keep playing, and it has a little timer and you got to feed it with quarters. AI is kind of programmed the same way, just like the social media. When it was created, they made it addictive and put algorithms in there to make sure that people doom scroll, and still do. I get a kick because with GPT especially, I see this trend is in every chat, you ask it for a best answer and it gives you a best answer. But then at the bottoms, it would always say, would you like a better answer? Would you like to really know? Or I could tweak this for you if you'd like to have this next thing. And of course you're saying yes, because they want you to spend tokens, and that's why they call them tokens, because you're feeding a machine to get information. And it's programmed to make you feel like you just came up with the best business idea that nobody has ever thought of,
It
yes,
makes me feel so good.
I know. Quit your job. Yeah. Launch this business, do this thing.
I can help you.
Yeah. You're going to be great. You won't have depression anymore. Let's keep chatting, So yeah, people can get in trouble if they just assume that, oh yeah, this AI thing is supposed to be super smart, right? No, you got to treat it. And especially if you haven't given it any guidelines, like you said, or constraints or controls, instruction sets and boundaries, then it's just programmed to make you feel good about life.
Right. Yeah. Yet it's still very powerful, and that's what we're here to uncover, right?
That's right. Right.
That's where you, like, how I appreciate what you did, because when we were going through and you were showing me some of these tools, I was like, wow, like not only, and you used AI to build these AI tools, and that's because you have a certain level of understanding how to utilize them, but they have great applicability for taking someone through like these first hurdles, right, that they have to overcome. Like you're basically saying like you're structuring, by when a person comes in, they use one of your tools, and we'll hop into one right now, but you're helping them structure the way to think. You're helping them structure everything that they've had, bringing it into a single platform, but more importantly, like getting them to think through how they want to then like utilize that information with the AI, supporting that. So, without further ado, we can jump into, I think it's like your most recent product, which is AI Your Business, right? Is that, and that's, I'm not sure if there's a URL that you want to just say, but, I think also post-production, we'll put it in the description in YouTube for people to go to if they want.
Sure. Yeah. It's fixandscale.cloud is that program, and it's free to hop on. We built some tools that are free to the public on that piece of it. And I can share my screen, or you can log on, or however you want to do that piece of it. But if they want to see the tool, I can talk a little bit about it, because it's a really interesting topic with regards to, I'd say, the information industry or the coaching or consulting industry. I've been a coach or a mentor for 20 plus years. As soon as I became a director a long, long time ago in the world, you have to hire people, train people, promote people, educate, and all that piece of it. So I've always been working with staff, and mostly in sales and marketing and hiring and training and running sales teams. There's a big difference right now, because a lot of, coaching and consulting used to be where a company or a coach or a consultant kind of had some secret sauce, kind of had, some information that nobody else had, and they were selling information. So we could meet and I could listen and coach and guide and obviously encourage and hold accountability. But also I had like these tools and this knowledge that you didn't have. Not anymore today, because now you can program AI to be, Bronson or any huge famous coach that you love, and give them a personality, and you can ask it questions, and you can have your own virtual coach. So it's really upsetting the coaching world, in my opinion. Actually, I don't think it's upsetting it. I think it's forcing it into a transition. And so in our programs, we have utilized AI to build tools. So it's a program that does give some frameworks that other people don't have access to, but it's an interactive tool that can help guide and coach people. And this AI Your Business really isn't so much of a coaching product or a service that we offer, but this is now a small business platform that we're launching. That's a 6-week training course to help small businesses actually roll out AI into their business. And it's perfect for the trades, for the small businesses, or even solopreneurs that actually are lost in the AI jungle right now. And they can go through and kind of come from an AI zero to an AI hero in 6 weeks. And we just cut through all the thousands of videos that are out there and all the tools that are available, and actually teach from the very ground up and how to, one, understand and use AI, but then also to set the controls and the guidelines to generate your markdown files, which is just a big fancy AI word for a text file that has your information in it that's in a format that AI likes to read, right? It's just an instruction set.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this platform, you've got that piece of it up. Yeah, you can create a free account, and in the free account, we give you a couple tools that you can use. I think we give you access to some of the best small business AI platforms that are out there that all interact together, so you can stitch together some automations and some workflows. We have an assessment that you're just talking about that tells you what your AI readiness is, and then also some automation maturity score, and then gives you, based on your business and some questions that you answer, some easy wins as far as some good automations that you could build that actually will save you hours out of the week, or your business hours out of the week, by just setting up some good automations and stitching some tools together. The goal of the course, and we've had several students go through it, is by the end of the 6 weeks, most of them have either built a React-based website, so websites in Lovable, or some other platforms that kind of use a different way to build a website through prompting, not through actually building. We've had some companies that have built their own dashboards, metric dashboards, that have connected APIs, which is an application to program interface. It just connects two systems together. They didn't know what an API was before they started the course. After the course, they connected it to Google Places. They connected it to Google Ads, to Meta Ads, to all their ads, so that they could create their single source of truth for their ad management, to know what their ad spend is and to know which ads are launching without having to rely on marketing teams, or without having to log on to 6 different platforms and try to bring all those things together. They built that themselves after 6 weeks. So it's amazing in what you can learn if you find something that does it. And we like our program just because it's focused on small business.
Yeah. And I'll just take the time right now to mention, the value and the impact that this tool has to have that power, like what you're showing folks within a 6-week period. I come from the background of product development. I've spent, the last 15 years doing that. And what I really appreciate, even though it's caused a lot of disruption in my own industry, and it's changed the way, we deliver product and technology. Mm-hmm. It's incredible for business owners, right? It's incredible with people, or for people with ideas, to be able to iterate on those ideas, mm-hmm. and get to a pretty high fidelity that they're actually useful tools, right? Before, it's just like, I remember maybe a couple of years ago when some of these first tools were coming out, it's just like, it was just an idea. Like, you can interact, you can press some buttons. But now, as it's expanded, you can actually build some great, like you said, build some great integrations with other APIs, bring your data into places, all without having to be too technical, and proving whether or not this tool is good for you. And I was literally just having a conversation with the business owner this morning, and he's in the automotive industry. And there's certainly lots of conversation around let's build a product that's great for the entire industry. But it's like, do we, nowadays that's a very expensive, proposition. Mm-hmm. So if we can prove something first and get it to work and show that it actually has some legs behind it, sure, maybe we don't have to go build all the bells and whistles, the authentication and, the hyper scalable, it's like, we can just make it so that way it just does what we need it to be for this moment, and then, mm-hmm. and then get the adoption, right? And that's, so it's a much better way to scale into a real product.
Yeah, it's amazing to launch MVPs, or minimum viable products, or proof of concepts. That, yeah, if you want to build a product that's going to go national, that's going to be a multi-million-dollar thing. well, you can prove it out and do all the hard work yourself very quickly and very cheaply or inexpensively upfront with these tools. And then it takes off, you get traction and it builds. And then you have runway, you have funding coming in, and now you can invest in a developer then to go harden that and make it into a fully secure, maximum deployable, scalable platform.
Right. And that's actually, I do like to also mention that, right? Like there is a big difference between the applications that can be built with AI at this moment, right? That are MVPs versus like what you would want if you do need to take this to market. You can get really close, but in order to make it like enterprise ready and fully scalable, there is still a lot of work. There's still value in requiring a dev team to be able to do that, and the product development does sort of change, right? You have multiple types of development resources. You might have a tester, you might have a project manager, again depending on the scope of things, but there's quite a separation between doing an MVP and then making it fully scalable.
For sure. I work a lot and am part of a group here in Atlanta called TIE Atlanta. And so we do a lot of mentorship for startups through the Access Foundation and some different incubators and different startups, which of course a lot of them are all AI-based products at some level, right? In the old days, last year or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you had a concept and a business idea and you wanted to get investors, you could have a nice pitch deck, right? You might have a UI or a graphic designer may have mapped out what the UI looked like.
Yep.
Kind of had the use cases and you could sell a story on paper.
Right.
Nope. I mean, today, now for the investors, especially with AI and SaaS, you need to have a working proof of concept that they can log on to, that they can experience, that they can see, that the UI is kind of laid out and built. And typically a couple customers, 10, 100,
they might even want
1,000 customers. A lot of them want to see traction. Well, this is a question that we get a lot. Tell me about your traction. How many users and what's your user uptake? What's your churn rate? Yeah. For proof of concepts and MVP, they're asking for things that a year or 2 years ago would not have been asked, but they are now. Now it's a part of the game.
Yep. So getting these tools, and getting trained on them is a great way for a business owner to solve their own problems. I think there's probably some interesting situations that you've been in and things that you could talk on a little bit more, because at the end of the day, I think there's value in a business owner, especially like you said, a solopreneur, a small business owner. At the end of the day, they're the one that has to dive into this, and if they're lucky enough, they can pay someone to do this for them, because and that will help advance, right? Because there are people who are good at this particular role, but they still have to go through that filtering process, that evolution, that aggregation, that making sure that the garbage in doesn't filter out, and they have to distill everything. And so there is, and what I would recommend for business owners, I mean, I would say there is a certain type of pedigree or a certain type of personality of person that's just willing to do it all. But, I've talked with other coaches, believe it or not, that they're just like, is that really where you want to spend your best time, right? Are you really moving the needle if you're taking a step back and building? And I think it just all depends. But what I like to say is there's kind of like I feel like I work better when I have synergy with someone, and like they have their craft, I have my craft, and we can like go back and forth. I may not want to build it, but what's still good is even using your tool, you go through this and then come out with a great understanding. And that's what I really liked about it, was like the framework that you have to educate people, because that's just going to make the end result that much better, even if they decided not to do it themselves.
That's right. This is a very, very important topic, and there's a couple of concepts that you just laid out that are very, very insightful. One is, we teach about working on your business, not in your business, right? So do I really need to learn AI and be a vibe coder and be an expert in AI if I'm a business owner? No, but to some level, a little bit. And let me explain. There's a pretty big technology gap between boomers and millennials, right? They would always make fun of, I got to go over to my grandparents' house and show him how to work his iPhone, or I always get called from the older generation to, now where's that setting at? There's a big technology gap in it, and you lose a lot of respect when, at the time, or kind of still, a certain generation may be running a company and they're so technically illiterate. It's hard to lead a lot of younger generation that are hyper technical literate, and there's a big gap there. So it's not always a good look. So yes, work on your business, not in your business. However, when we talk about delegation, and we teach a lot about delegation for small businesses, it's still another skill that business owners are horrible at. That you don't have to be an expert to delegate a task, but you need to know enough to delegate it effectively and give the proper instructions. So business owners need to be technically and AI literate. They absolutely need to understand the risks, because they're the ones that are going to set how the guidelines for how this company is going to use AI, or they have to hire somebody to come in and set the guidelines for how the company is going to use AI. So at minimum, yes, I think everybody right now, it's a revolution. It's going to change things. It has changed things. It'll continue to change things, and it's going to evolve rapidly. So business owners, I don't care what level you're at, you need to get literate with AI and understand how it works.
And if I could, Todd, as you're saying that,
yeah,
I'll make the quick parallel that right there, what you said in terms of they're going to have to dictate, and they have to know how to lay out that foundation. It's that same ability to be able to dictate to the AI, right? Like people have to know how to speak to an AI at the end of the day in order to get the best result. And if you don't, then you're going to run into the same problems.
100%. Yeah. I always say it's, treat AI like your, like your favorite autistic friend. Social skills may not always be there, but they're the smartest person their brain is wired to process at a much faster speed than we can, but you still have to break down very clear instructions on how you want things to happen, and know how that works, right? So yeah, I'm kind of getting tired of all the prompt engineering and buy my book of prompts and all that. I think that was kind of last year kind of thing. Now I think the focus really should be on the setup and the guidelines, the instruction sets that you give it, and making AI behave the way that you want it to do before you even mess with the prompting and everything else. Right. Because a well-designed and set up AI stack, you don't have to be as good as writing a prompt, because it should already be in the instruction set. Exactly. It should already anticipate and know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe we can unpack that a little bit so that way viewers, listeners kind of understand that nuance. And correct me, we're all kind of like also evolving with these things. But the way I view that is a prompt is kind of something that you give it in the chat that you're having, like in that moment. And then it's like, and then you're done, right? But like you said, and this is what I like to focus on as well. So that's why I think we have a lot in common when this comes, is there's a difference between just doing it once for a chat, and then there's building infrastructure. And when you build infrastructure, you're building something that you don't have to go in and prompt it every time for that thing. It's because it already knows what to expect and that context and that structure. At the end of the day, is that how you would frame that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And because people haven't set it up, they've had to understand how to write a good prompt.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's where the scale, like the economies of scale and the efficiencies within the organization start to compound. Like you don't want to be prompting every single time for the same, financial reconciliation, right? Like if you're doing it for some sort of like accounting or financial process, that needs to be built into the instructions already of like what tables to access, what columns to, calculate this way or that way. And similarly with, if you're doing something more creative, or like you said, like you gave the example of building the dashboard, right? You don't want to be prompting to build a dashboard every time. You want that to be defined in your instructions. And that's really where the unlock is. And that's where, I think, we've talked briefly about like Expert AI OS, but that's you have these tools that are very specific for coaches. Some of the things that Expert AI OS actually contributes to or like supports is kind of like where we've had, I guess you could say, like celebrities or personalities or even like businesses where they have, how do I say it? Like, it's kind of like their own intellectual property that they need to disseminate. Like, it's because it's one thing to gather your intellectual property and your business processes for like your purpose, but then imagine if you had to disseminate that across thousands of people. That's where we help to aggregate that and then disseminate that depending on the content or depending on the medium, right? Wherever the customers might be. And in fact, so I just, it's really, I think that's if companies could make one big change or, make, like you said, like prompts were like, so they were like 2025, 2026 is you're building real infrastructure that supports your business processes. And especially if you have repeatable business processes, right? Or you have this like intellectual property that you've structured that needs to be framed up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your AI should be, or you load it, your financial sheet or numbers or whatever an output is that you deal a lot with. You should just be able to load that to AI and it says, oh, I see that you uploaded this type of document. It looks like it's this. Would you like for me to run sequence A, B, or C on it? And you just click yes, right? And it's already pre-programmed to have the right prompt, to have the right output and the right format that's going to go here, it's going to do this. Exactly. And that there's a human in the loop so that before it makes a big change or does anything external that it should ask a human, is this okay? Is this what you wanted? And all you're doing is you load a thing and you just type yes or no, or modify or whatever else. You should not have to say, you are the world's smartest financial architect or CFO, and you lived your life in New York City, and you have a tough accent and you don't take crap from anybody. If you're still doing that, you don't have it set up right, and you're just asking for trouble. Yeah.
And you also said one very important thing, and that's that you have to keep the human in the loop at this point. Right. Like
still,
I think there might be a lot of wolf tickets, overselling on just let AI do all this stuff. And it's like, I mean, for those who build technology now, we know that no technology is perfect and neither is AI. And AI can accomplish like 90% of the work for you, like incredibly fast. But if you're not paying attention to that 10% is going to get you, and that's where you'll be exposed, or that's where, you might run into some problems. And so keeping the human in the loop and knowing what you're expecting, and always doing that final review. You always got to review it. And then
that's right.
But that's also an opportunity to, like, if something is wrong, then, you go back into the instructions and you change those instructions. Right.
And you have to know how it's engineered, how it's constructed, and where those instructions are at.
Right.
It's like Tesla, amazing technology, self-driving cars. But every month there's still that self-driving car that ran into a sign or ran into a train. As great as that technology is, there's still going to be accidents. So you can't just let it run on autopilot and hope for the best.
No, not at all.
Right.
So cool. So we're chugging along here. I think, we've spent a good time, and I want to make sure that we're covering two of the other or not more important, but two of the other important technologies that you've built. So the first one you talked about was AI or business. We had that up on the screen as well. Make sure to put that into the links. But the next one is specifically targeting like the CXOs, right? All the CEOs, CTOs, and it's an entire operating system that we built for that specific group.
Yeah, this one's really exciting. So, for executives in the C-suite or even VPs or those that are rising into a C-suite, that's where I spent, the bulk of the latter part of my career, and worked a lot with CEOs. Even early in my career, I was at Lucent Technologies, and I had some projects that I was assigned, and I worked with two phenomenal women in business at the time. Pat Russo, who I think is still on the board of directors for Hewlett Packard, and Janet Davidson was the president of technology at the time. Had some huge projects, and I had the opportunity to travel and work very, very closely with them, as well as some other CEOs that I work with at different companies. So I firsthand kind of got to see what that C-suite goes through on that piece of it. And then as I got my executive coaching and have been coaching the executives, one thing that I discovered as we go through some of the education, the modules and the training for time management, personal development skills, leadership, how to lead your people more effectively, all that great stuff, is that as AI got more mature, I saw a good intersection to fill a gap that a lot of C-suites have. And that is that a lot of C-suites and executives or business owners for that matter, everybody struggles with imposter syndrome to some degree. And I say it's another thing, decision latency, because you have to make very big decisions that have major impact on people's lives, companies, jobs, careers, investors, and everything else. They can't make rash decisions. They have to process a lot. And most people don't understand why CEOs earn what they earn, because the mental tax and the sacrifices they have to make as they're leading and running companies is huge. Unless you're in that situation, you just don't understand. And so what I've done is combined our coaching with some of the greatest modules that optimize their schedules, their time, leadership, negotiation, persuasion. And then the outcome of those coaching lessons one-on-one gets input into a secure private AI environment, not on the public GPT or all the other LLMs that are public, but a private instance that basically creates a digital clone of the most efficient version of themselves that they can then interact with and strategize and bounce ideas off, have a sounding board. We program in all of their entire 360-degree circle. We used to do a lot of coaching on 360, meaning people above you, below you, your peers, everybody, and how to navigate relationships and conversations. Well, now we can put all those people, run an AI sequence to give a personality profile on everybody that you deal with, and create a matrix of people that's all programmed in AI language. And so you have to make a big decision, or you have to go to your board of trustees, board of directors, investors, customers, and have a conversation. Well, AI knows a lot about that person from LinkedIn and social media, and it's run some algorithms against that person, and it knows you and your personality and your communication style, and it'll guide you and kind of give you a role play through a scenario to make a big decision and get a board to pass your vote, or to get a customer to say yes, or to handle a crisis at work. You put in your framework through our coaching. We'll talk about red lines and guidelines and frameworks and escalation and all the things that we have to do with executive coaching. But then it's also molded into your private AI instance that now you can cut that decision latency time down and you can interact with it to make a great decision. So it's been a very powerful secret weapon for the clients that are in that program. As they systematically go through and get the coaching, they also get a powerful tool that they can take with them and interact with.
Yeah. And I'll just take a minute to make sure that, again, the viewers, listeners understand what's happening there. And correct me if I haven't assessed it properly, but you're plugging in the AI into their normal workflow, their normal cadence. You're starting to record meetings that they're on, conversations. The AI has been trained so that way it starts to separate out a lot of the key players within that person's life, within the business context, of course. And it's parsing out conversations. It knows who this person is. It's building profiles for those people, recording all this. So that way, basically at the drop of a hat or any moment's notice that they need to go back, that individual needs to go back, ask questions, like you said, bounce ideas, get prepped for meetings or whatever it might be. It has all of that context already plugged in. You haven't had to make any separate integrations, and it's just basically there as your secondhand person, your second brain, really, doing all that and ready for you whenever you need to make decisions, whenever you need to ask questions, whenever you need to recall information. It's just there.
That's it, yeah. And we have it for each role. So a CEO coaching program is going to be different than the CRO, than the CHRO. So it is role specific. And the training lessons that we have, is based on Focal Point. So it's a franchise, a business created by Brian Tracy. So we have some great focal point content in there and the other content that we've created for executives. And yeah, it goes through their personal, how they operate, how they think. It goes through their company profile. So it's programmed to their specific company that can be updated later if they change companies. And then to their role, whether it's revenue focused or finance or executive. And so there's the training modules. And then after every session that we go through, which is a live one-on-one coaching, we don't replace coaching with an AI coach. Basically, I'm teaching the material. We're having the one-on-one interaction. We're solving problems. And then we go through the training sequence part of the call. I take that transcript, load it right into the AI. It's listening for the customization for that executive. It pulls out the data specific to that executive, puts it into JSON and into AI language, into their knowledge base, and it reprograms kind of the root or the basic good CEO, and now customizes it to them. So now it's a bespoke custom fitting model based on their responses, on their strategic plans, on their life goals, on their company goals, on their people, their employees, their things, backed in by a built-in framework that we built into it. So it's
that
really
was
nice.
going to be the one thing that I'm glad you said it, but I was just going to make sure to tie that in, is like, this is a multi-dimensional AI tool and platform that, like you said, it's not only built on their character, their essence and all of their relationships, but it has a framework, right? Like that's the context, that's those are the rule sets that you're kind of analyzing everything, that it's a proven model, right? How long has Focal Point been around? I mean, you guys,
yeah, 35 years, but it's
35 years, and
that it always gets continuous improvement. I call it a wedding cake program, meaning a lot of great bakers that do wedding cakes, they bake the best tasting wedding cake that has the recipe that stood the test of time, that's always tried and true, and they'll bake hundreds or dozens of round or square cakes and set those aside. That doesn't make a great wedding cake. When a bride comes in and wants a wedding cake, they'll take that sponge cake or that wedding cake that they've made dozens of and stack it into whatever shape that the bride wants. And then it's the frosting on top that gets customized based on their exact specifications.
right.
That's kind of what our program is that it has that basic cake layer that stood the test of time through the most powerful CEOs have gone through a lot of these programs in the world. And now the icing is that customized piece that we go through in the one-on-one coaching that then makes it their own.
Yeah. This is the power of AI right now. It is.
Yeah.
Customization. Like never before have we had the ability to service individual people with such guys like hyper like specialization, right? And then in almost instant time. It's actually like a lot of the tools that we build for our clients, it's similar in the sense of, they're serving thousands of clients, and the AI that we're building that has their context, their framework, can be used to build a special relationship with that client that they're serving that retains more information than it ever could if it was a normal person, has better follow-up, follow through, can meet them whenever they need. It's not a replacement, it's really a supplement, right? Like you find a way to augment the already existing, framework or support framework that you provide to your clients. But this is just another way that, hey, at the end of the day, I didn't need to wait 24 hours to have a conversation with someone who already knew the answer. It was there, that they just couldn't respond to me.
Right.
Like not everything requires that specific like hand holding and that guidance. Sometimes I just need an answer. And that's what AI is really unlocking right now.
Yeah. It gives your company the flexibility and opportunity to get answers faster, with the right thing, and operate with speed.
Yep. Very cool. Well, one more product that I want to make sure we cover. You've done quite a bit, and it's almost like, honestly, each one of these products could have been its own independent podcast. At the time.
Yeah, and it
They're
should
all
be
deserving of it.
And I always get in trouble that I've got so many different little things here, but honestly, it's business coaching, it's executive coaching, and then the AI Your Business, is just at fixandscale.cloud. is just one of our cohort classes that falls within that business coaching category on that piece of it. The other app that we have is app.fixandscaleyourbusiness.com. That's just a coaching platform that we use. That's free to join. It's got a lot of great tools in there. Because right now in coaching, you can't sell information like lead magnets and businesses that want to have the old funnels where, hey, give me your phone number and email and I'll send you a PDF on some secret thing or some guide or some whatever else. Lead magnets like that are dead, right? Nobody's going to sign up for an ebook because I can have the most brilliant writer in the world right now write me an ebook on any topic that I want in 5 minutes, right? People have unlimited access to PDFs and downloads and whatever else. So that doesn't work anymore. So what we build are micro tools that we give out for free. So we have for small businesses, Google Business Profile is a very important thing for people to get right. That's how people find them to do business. And so we have a Google Business Profile Analyzer. You put in your Google, and this is free. If you go to app.fixandscaleyourbusiness.com, create a free account. You take an assessment and it tells you where your bottlenecks are at. And then here's 5 different educational modules that you can go read and interact with to learn how to overcome that bottleneck. Next, we recommend putting your Google Business Profile through our analyzer, and it's going to go through a 50-point checklist using AI and say, here's all the things that are broke and here's what you need to go fix right away so people can find you and get you more business. Business owners that have done that are like, oh crap, I didn't know that I needed to have my services listed or have this, or I didn't know that the phone number wasn't on there. And all of a sudden they put their phone number on it and now they've got 5 new customers a week. We've had cases like that where they just didn't realize, or they thought somebody had done that and they didn't. So we try to give out tools because our goal is to have small businesses succeed and thrive and eventually sell for as much money as they can to fund their retirement. And the more tools that we can get out there and help businesses and introduce our frameworks and our coaching, our big coaching program for small businesses is a fix and scale your business in 90 days, where in 90 days we build all your sales processes, systems, training scripts, your profit and your systems to optimize your costs and your OpEx so that you can maximize your profits. And then your systems and tools, where we can make sure that your tools and systems are all set up to be scalable, with the whole idea that you could clockwork your business and schedule a 4-week vacation and go and take a 4-week vacation and enjoy yourself and not worry about your business, have it run like clockwork behind. In 90 days, we set up businesses to fix most of those things.
That's incredible. And you said that's free to go and check out the app and kind of like audit your own business. And then if people wanted to join, then what is it?
It's all within the tool. So you can click on programs and join some of our paid programs. And there's a lot more free tools than just that one tool. So we'll have access to a lot of things. And then it's turning into a subscription program. If they don't want coaching or pay for coaching, but want to see all of the tools and all of the lessons if they want to, then there's a subscription price that we have at $69 a month to use all the AI, because it does unlock, because again, as you interact and do the assessments and do all these things, inside that tool is your own business AI. So now it knows your business. It's already programmed. It's safe. No prompting necessary. You can just ask it questions about your business or how to scale or marketing, ads, all the things that we as small business owners have to do. And you can have access to that program, but it does, as we found out, use a lot of tokens. And so we were spending a lot of money for all the free users to be on that and using our free AI that was safe and protected. So it was a big loss leader for a while, but now we do need to charge for that because it does take up a lot of credits.
Yeah, I wish we could go through some of the features, but when we went through it originally, there's great value there. And I think you guys are doing a great service to small business owners and other like solopreneurs and anybody who's trying to optimize, because you aren't charging an arm and a leg, you aren't trying to gouge, you built these great useful tools and you're just trying to cover your costs, and if it leads to something else, then great. But it really truly feels like you're trying to support small business and growing businesses.
Yeah, that in the end of the day, growing up in that and seeing from my own experience and my own family businesses, the impact that it has when business doesn't go great, the impact that it has on families. and just the stress that business owners have when they don't know if they're going to make payroll. I've seen the anguish of my uncles and aunts going through that. And then I've also seen, when they thrive, the impact that they can give back to the community, and build legacies and have a huge impact on people beyond their business. So that's what I want. I want to not have the bad situation and create businesses that have that good situation in any way that we can be used in that matter. But that is my passion. That's my goal.
That's cool. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you, Todd. All the best. I hope this gets some good traction and people can see all the great tools that you built. And hopefully you can drive some people to see what you've done.
Love it. Thank you.
All right, Todd. Have a great day.
You bet.